Hey there guys, it's Joey, and this video is going to be about Morrigan and trials of the Morrigan, difficulties within life, and the path which Morrigan sets out in front of her sons and daughters. Trials, challenges, difficulties. Over the course of the years of me talking at least about the Morrigan on YouTube, I've seen a few points of view which I think are misconceptions, and at least from my experience, as always, I can only speak to my experiences, and I really don't think that this is a negative thing to admit to or say or talk about, because spiritual paths and our paths in general are our own, our paths. We walk them, we feel them, etc. And so the idea that somehow that becomes self-centered or selfish or stupid or something, I don't fully understand that at all, because it to me is no weakness to admit to the fact that you can only speak to what you have seen and felt and experienced. I can't talk about things from other people's points of view because I haven't lived their life. I haven't felt the way they feel. I can empathise and sympathise, but it's my path. Let's start with that. So, one of the first misconceptions is that following the path of the Morrigan is going to solve your problems, that she's a dark warrior goddess, therefore she will take care of all of your problems and fight your battles for you, and you're going to have an easy time of it. No. No, no, and no. The Morrigan sort of tends to appear in two overarching ways, I guess, that I have seen. And the first is the very definite call to her sons and daughters, those that she will be with for life. Some people can't grasp that, can't understand that, and that's fine, but for those who do understand that, they know that they accept the Morrigan into their life, and that is a huge crow outside my window. Hello! Oh goodness. Sorry, she's listening. That when they accept the Morrigan into their life, it means not an easy time of it. I've said before that quite frequently the Morrigan will challenge her sons and daughters on a frequent basis. And a lot of it is about how you behave, react to the situation, to the scenario that is put in front of you. My sister shared a picture, and it was actually with a Nordic Viking twist on it, but it sums up exactly how I feel the Morrigan would speak if in terms of these difficulties, these trials that get thrown into your life. Giving up is not an option. Fight on. So, and then there are those who are touched by the Morrigan, like she will appear for brief stints of time and then disappear again, and there's no mistaking it. Her energy is intense, incredible. There's no mistaking it. There's nothing, I don't know. There is no mistaking it. How do I even start to explain that energy? All-encompassing, intense, shifting, shape-shifting, fluid, in motion, strong, strength, honour. It's all that and so much more. So it may well be that the Morrigan turns up and helps you in times of most dire need, and that has happened to a few people. Not in every circumstance, but I have 9 out of 10 circumstances that I've heard when the Morrigan has appeared and then later disappeared, I guess, in that scenario, is often when women are in dire need. Like abuse situations or domestic abuse situations, that sort of thing. And when they are struggling to fight through to free themselves, then quite frequently she appears and boosts that fight. So, why make this video? Okay. There has been something around of late with the sort of judgmental nature on whether or not you can follow the Morrigan. You can, and I don't take any notice because to me, someone saying to me you can't follow the Morrigan because it's kind of hilarious to me. I'm like, you know what, you go tell the Morrigan she's wrong and you have fun with that. And there's this notion around that if you haven't been in a physical war, if you're not a soldier, then somehow your experiences, your trials, your personal battles, your personal wars are less valid. There's also been some strange things, you know, what nationality you are, you know, without knowing a person, you don't know their roots, their nationality, their heritage, and to be honest, I don't think it really has a huge amount to do with it, because if you do what your ancestors have done and you never get outside of that box, then you're not learning anything. There's nothing wrong with honouring your ancestors and carrying forward tradition, then fine, but you know, if you are called to a particular pagan path, then you embrace that. You don't ignore it because your ancestors are X, Y, Z. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me, it really doesn't. So, the Morrigan doesn't make anybody's life any easier. And I think it's fair and easy to say that people who have been called to the Morrigan will understand immediately what I mean by knowing something about blood. Knowing something about bleeding, and it doesn't have to be a physical bleeding either. Morrigan tends to appear to and choose those who have bled, who have suffered at the hands of their blood family, who have been hurt, and who have, along that path, never given up and fought on. And we're not talking everyday circumstances. I don't know any sons or daughters of the Morrigan who have had everyday circumstances and that's it. All of them will have had terrifying moments within their life. Moments where they face down what I call the path of what is easy and the path of what is right, and the path of what is right is probably the most costly thing they've ever done and will ever have to do, and it tears them apart to do it, but they pick what is right over what is easy. And that's a defining moment in the life for a lot of sons and daughters of the Morrigan, and that will be a personal experience to each individual, but they will know exactly what I'm talking about. It may be more than one, it may have gone on for more than one experience. It may have sort of fractured into different experiences, a situation that had to be overcome. And it may be a life challenge, a life lesson, real trials and real pain. Now, a person's inner battles, wrestling with inner demons, overcoming real pain, real torture, whatever form that has manifested in their life, whatever challenge, however they have bled, is fairly irrelevant. You're nitpicking at the details about how a person may or may not have proved themselves, or may not have bled, or may not have fought. And the very stark truth of this situation is that we have no way of knowing what someone else has been through. We do not experience what anybody else has been through, and it's really not up to us to judge somebody else's hardship, loss, or path. Frequently, when following the path of the Morrigan honours those trials which we've already overcome, and she will have taken that into consideration before calling upon us. It's defining moments like that which prove who we really are, and we know in our heart, in the very depths of us, in our soul, how we have behaved in a certain situation. And if we can take that point, that trial, and there may be more than one, of course, but there's usually one which is life-defining, crushing, but we survive, that sort of experience, and we can tend to know exactly how we behaved and whether or not we can take an element of pride about how we reacted and behaved in that circumstance. For me, for my worst case, which I'm coming up on 10 years, I think, yeah. I can look back and say that when I die, when the Morrigan takes me, I can look back upon that moment without shame. And for a lot of abuse victims of whatever kind of abuse, that's a very difficult thing to do, to look back at that moment and say that I behaved bravely in that trial. I chose what was right over what was easy. And engaging with the path of the Morrigan going forward, you're going to be tested. And you are given choices. And you're given tests and trials to prove yourself, or you fall. Or you fall down. Or you don't do the honourable thing. Half the challenge is discovering what the honourable thing is. Because the interesting thing about human nature is our ability to justify our own behaviour. That's an interesting trial to overcome. The minute you stop justifying your behaviour and truly take a good, hard look at how you react and how you behave. That's something about the path of the Morrigan which I have been giving myself over to wholeheartedly. And I'm still doing. There are still areas that I need to work on. And I think that's a process of life. But to make a very serious commitment to those trials is to overcome the block of yourself and get over yourself and your ego. And there is a lot of talk in the spiritual community about the complete disregard of the ego, and I don't completely agree with that, because I think everything is given to us for a reason, everything has its purpose, everything has its reason for being. And I don't believe in a disconnected spirituality either. I think that spirituality is the way that you live, rather than some high ideal of being disconnected from everything. If that makes sense. And one of the great trials of following the path of the Morrigan is literally get over yourself. There's a code of personal honour that forms around this notion. I've never very much enjoyed self-centered behaviour. I always had a problem with it. And I've always had a problem with my own. And you have to sort of start to learn within your own consciousness, within your own mind, within your own, what is really you being selfish and what is necessary. So you look into things like personal boundaries, what you allow and what you do not allow, because obviously if you're following the path of a warrior goddess, then you can't be a doormat, and you have to embrace your strong, honourable sense of self without becoming egotistically self-centered and petty and shallow and things of that nature. It's walking a line, a balance, and that in itself is a mother trial. It really is. It's a really difficult one, and it's something that I plod on either side. I need to, on a personal level, on a personal note, I need to keep checking myself, and that's something I do regularly. And there are very limited amount of people who will ever have the input that I will go to when I'm trying to check myself, but I'm having difficulty with it. When I don't know how much of my emotions is overruling my logic, and whether or not I need to balance myself up a bit. And that's something we all go through, I think. I hope. Otherwise it's just me out on a ledge. Yeah. A sense of victimhood within the idea of following the Morrigan is not going to get you anywhere. There were all times in our life when we suffer. We're human beings, that it happens to us all, difficult situations. It's inescapable fact that life is ups and downs, and it has to be that way because flatline is dead. And there are times when we're going to beat our chest, we're going to scream, we're going to cry, we're going to, what on earth is going on? But it has to be moments of pain that we allow ourselves to feel before picking ourselves up and fighting on, because the whole, why me? There's no place for it. There is just no place for it. It's not an honourable way to be. It's looking outside of yourself. It's blaming everybody else. It's dishonourable, and I take real issue with it. My mother was like it every day of her life, and I take issue with it. Again, some of that is my own personal inner demons, which I'm working on, but to be honest, I just never want to be that way. And again, that is walking the line between making sure that you are self-assured enough to not allow things which poison you, which goes back to the blood thing, and we're going to talk about that in a second, versus, over egotistical selfishness. My friend shared a status maybe an hour ago, one of my oldest friends, that she was thinking about the fact that, family is not blood. Family are those who take you in and accept you and love you for who you are, flaws and all. And they don't demand things from you. They don't use you for their own ends. They don't poison your blood. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of people who will follow the Morrigan know what it is like to be poisoned by those who they truly love. Not always blood family, but my experience is blood family, so that's what I can talk about. And unfortunately, that is a dark poison by those who are supposed to keep you safe, supposed to protect you, supposed to love you, supposed to encourage you and all the rest of it, and keep you safe in your childhood state, and they don't. Another crow. And that sentiment by my friend is something which I think a lot of those who truly engage with the Morrigan will truly understand. It's not necessarily those of your blood who you are loyal to. What is going... There are 8 dragonflies outside my window. It's not necessarily those who you are born to of your blood who you are loyal to. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Nature is going mad outside. But your family are your blood in a way which is outside of who you were born to. I'm trying my best to make sense with the blood analogy. And those who have been through the trials of blood, and I think it's probably fair to say there are different types of trials that arise from this, and if you actually look at the myth, there's a lot of blood imagery connected with magic and sorcery in both cursing and blessing in the Morrigan mythology. And I think that is something which a lot of us have been through and will understand how blood can be a blessing and a curse. Those of us who feel cursed by our bloodline, and those of us who have found our true family, I don't want to say true blood. Scene with Ginger, oh my god. Anyway. But I guess that's what, that's the trials of blood. And then there are trials of spirit, dark nights of the soul, when we doubt everything and overcome that. There may be trials of the heart, of emotional pain, and there may or may not be trials of I don't know what the best way of putting it is, but it's a bit like losing everything you have, physically. I know a lot of followers who've been through that as well. They will have, lost pretty much everything they own. I went through that. It's something I never really understand, the closed-mindedness to judge whether or not someone else is a true X, Y, or Z, or to try and undermine someone's path or way of doing things. There may be people who say things about the Morrigan and it gives me a very strong feeling that they don't know what they're talking about. However, in that circumstance, I walk away and I'm like, I'll let the Morrigan deal with it, because if she needs to deal with it, she'll deal with it. I mean, what am I going to say or do that is, better than what the goddess will do? Come on. We're a human being, she's a goddess. We need to get over ourselves, to be honest. I guess the trial of self is like that. Hey, little dragonflies. I realise I've been sounding a bit nuts, because there are gold dragonflies all outside. That's incredible. I love it when the universe is listening. It makes me want to cry. But there is this trial of self, this trial of figuring out who you are, who you want to be, and how to be the best person you can be. And usually you know when you're being the best person you can be, and you know what your weaknesses are, and they are very personal, and they're not really for anybody else to discriminate against you with. Because, to be honest, that to me feels like weakness again. Like the need to point out what everybody else is doing wrong. And the path of the Morrigan, and every Celtic path, to be honest, is a path of strength and honour and integrity. It's about understanding the difference between what a strong woman is and a little girl is, or a strong man is and a little boy is. It's about understanding the balance between responsibility and joy. We embrace our inner child, but that doesn't mean that we neglect all the lessons we've learned since. It's about showing people respect and honour. The Morrigan isn't going to make anybody's life easier. She's going to make you take a good, hard look at yourself. And it's truly, in equal measures, a path that will build you up and crush you right down. It will reshape you, and that's all part and parcel of the trials. It's making you take a good hard look at yourself, re-examine your reactions, your behaviours, the things you do, the things you say. And it's okay to have all the human reactions, because you are human. But it's absolutely necessary to fight on to be the best person you can be. And when we're talking about fighting on, we're not talking arguments or name calling or anything of that nature, because it's not honourable, is it? Can you imagine warriors calling each other this, that and the other across the battlefield? What is worth fighting for? What is worth dying for? What is worth standing up for? What is opening our minds beyond judgment? What is in your blood? The strength and will to carry on and be the best person that you can be. It's worth a thought. Many blessings.